What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the It Matters podcast. First and foremost, if you want to show your support, don't forget to subscribe to the Facebook page to stay updated with all the content coming up. Now I'd like to tell you something about my friends at Sneaks. Sneaks is basically all about sneakers. These guys are so passionate about the quality of their products and absolutely in love with sneakers. Each pair of them has its own story and personality. However, they believe that sneakers are often the ones who actually find us and not the other way around. And this is how their story started. Do you want to keep going? Choose sneaks and make the step. Today's guest is a teaching assistant in ophthalmology at the Carol Davila University School of Medicine, as well as an ophthalmology specialist at the Bucharest Emergency Eye Hospital in Bucharest. His expertise focuses on chiefly cataract, strabismus and traumatology, but also glaucoma and vitreoretinal pathology. He managed to perform a large number of surgical interventions and made his activity known through both medical presentations at national and international conferences and also published articles. Although medicine plays the most important role among his passions, he is also highly keen on programming and computer science, being also one of the founders of MedicChat, an app that links patients and doctors through its Uber-type interface, a system highly spread in countries like the UK or the US. In his free time, he is an enthusiastic guitar player. Back in the days, he used to sing in various cafes around town with one of his colleagues. He also enjoys mountain hiking, skiing, and playing basketball. With no further introduction, help me in welcoming the man who programs his way through the medical field, Dr. Valentin Dinu. So, welcome to the It Matters podcast. I'm really glad to have you here today.
Oh yeah, welcome to be here.
Well, I'm quite excited about the topics that we are going to cover today, and I really have to admit that when you mentioned them to me, they really triggered something in my mind, especially when you mentioned agnosticism, because it's quite an unusual term, and I really have to make some digging about it so that I can speak in, knowing about the subject. But let's start by defining it, because it's a bit confusing, the term, and I really want that everyone knows exactly and extract the information properly from it.
Right, well, because during my college years, me and my friends, which were not all Christian, well, actually they were, but not Orthodox Christian. I don't know if it's the same with you, but I had some friends that were Latter-day Saints, meaning what we would call Adventists. You're waiting for the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
With these people, I've had a lot of talks during the years, and I've stayed friends with them. Mm-hmm. And the talks related mostly to accepting the presence of a higher power, creationism, whether or not we can get to know any part of this, and this is where agnosticism plays its role. Because in Orthodox faith, the term to do not search is one of the commandments of Orthodox faith. Just believe and don't ask any questions. That is something you hear most often. And this is something that really does not resonate well with me. Like, asking questions and looking for the answers actively, whether you find them or not, is fundamental to scientific research. And this, put aside with the religion in its orthodox shape, you can't reconcile these things. It's a cognitive dichotomy. So agnosticism is something you have to accept when talking about religion. It is not, to us humans, given the fact that we can either know or not know the presence of a deity. So accepting the fact that we can't know is the first step in choosing to believe. Okay. So this is the agnosticism I was referring to when I posed those questions.
So do you refer to yourself as a religious person?
Oh, I actually refer to myself as an a very profound atheist. So
Okay.
a non-religious person, as non-religious as can be.
And why is that? And what's the reason behind it?
Well, I think it all started when I was in high school. Was one Easter evening when the family was supposed to go to church for the service, that you have to be there at I guess it's midnight, if I recall correctly. It's been a few years since I've been to one of these services, and once it was in my sophomore year of high school when I blatantly refused to join them, and it sparked a big argument in the family. Everybody was very mean. I spoiled the family reunion.
Okay.
I was a black sheep for a few months. And that was because I had been doing a lot of reading, but nobody knew that. Reading into a lot of anarchist text. So punk and anarchism was a current I was highly into when I was in high school. Listening to a lot of punk rock music and reading a lot of those texts. Some of the authors I was reading were Bakunin and Proudhon.
Okay.
And because of that, it's in those years it's very easy to get pushed to an extreme, because you are extreme by nature and feeling in those years. So this was my way of rebelling against my upbringing and the profound religiousness of the country I was living in. That was when I started being very anti-religious. I kept on being anti-religious until refining the faith I had. So it was starting from zero faith, no deity, no creationism at all, to the present day, where I still believe there is no creationism, but I still now I'm starting to believe that there is a point in believing in a higher power. Not to say that there is, but to accept the fact that it may be and you may have been wrong. To my mind, it's better for the individual to not believe, because if you do, then you always have a safe haven where you can always say, well, if anything goes wrong in my life, there's always an explanation, there's always something to fall back onto, which is faith and religion, of course. There may be an afterlife, that is another topic, but there may be where any wrong I've done in this life may be redeemed.
Okay.
So that is why I believe it's toxic to your development as an individual to be religious. But on the other hand, there is the argument that many sages, some of them even Romanian, for example, Petre Țuțea.
I know.
So he was highly intelligent, highly educated, and highly religious at the same time.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of aphorisms and a lot of citations that people juggle around the internet about how one of them really struck me. A Nobel Prize winner isn't as something I don't quite remember as a faithful person. But it's something to do with, even if you are a Nobel Prize winner, you're not as, I don't know if smart was the word, or oriented as a religious person that has devout himself to God or the Lord.
Yeah. I really don't know what to say. I mean, I totally agree with you on the topic that it can be toxic, because you can rely on it every time you hit rock bottom or everything like this. But I can admit that I am a religious person, and
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm religious, not in frequently going to the church, or I have a problem with our church, our Armenian church. But I think that there is a higher power. I can imagine that we right here are the smartest thing on the universe. I really cannot believe that.
Nobody says that.
What?
Nobody says that.
Oh yeah, I know. But I really believe that there is a higher power, no matter how you call it. right? But this doesn't. But on the same hand, I'm also always blaming everything that happens in my life. I'm blaming myself.
Well, that is the productive thing to do.
I mean,
right?
If something went wrong, is because maybe I did something wrong. Maybe not now, maybe not yesterday, maybe 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago. But this does not exclude me from being a religious person at all. I mean, I can admit I'm not going to the church very often. I've never been. Last time I've been to church, I think it was some years ago, 2 years ago or something like this. But I really think there is a higher power.
Do you have a personal connection with this higher power?
What do you mean by personal?
Well,
I mean,
you yourself, as Andrei Voicu, do you have a personal relationship with the higher power in terms of you communicating directly with it and it responding back to you directly and personally?
Responding? Communicating, yes. Responding, I really don't. I'm really not looking for responses. I mean, it's more like a meeting with my higher self or something like this, right? I mean,
or is the higher power your future self?
Not quite. I am a higher version of myself, I think, when I am in that mood. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not
So
saying that
you
I'm
are
a
your own
future
religion.
God. No, not like I'm not that insane.
Just a teeny bit.
Yeah, but I really believe in that, and I really personally I like Buddhists and Hindu priests because I did some research. I listened to them, and I think they are quite open-minded regarding God and everything like this. They are focusing on knowledge, on knowing things rather than just believing
in them.
Yeah, and I really think that it's quite a balanced combination between faith and knowledge. I mean, I really think that they are very smart, and they are very self-aware and present in our modern days. Because I don't know if you know, but there are, let's say, in a Hindu monastery, they have smartphones, they have laptops, they administer sites, they know Photoshop, but when they meditate, everything is put aside. They have rituals, morning rituals, evening rituals. They not pray for 17 hours a day or something like this. No, then they are very present. I mean, they refuse let's say that normal life because they want to focus their energy more on meditation rather than on commuting to work, having a spouse or everything like this. But they do not say only what they do is right and everything else is wrong. They don't do that. They say, okay, there is no right and wrong. There is a choice for your right and wrong. For me, this is right, to channel all my energy in meditation in order to achieve some high altar states and communicate with my higher power. And I think this is the healthiest approach in this.
Yeah, you'll always find that being open-minded is the healthiest approach. Whereas in these extreme Eastern Christian religions, that is not the case because you're most frequently prohibited from undertaking certain activities.
I know.
And using certain objects and engaging in certain rituals.
Yeah, I know.
The very idea of something being taboo, not necessarily specific to Christian religions, the very notion of taboo is in itself limiting. Because if you make something taboo, then it suddenly becomes more interesting to everybody on the spot. So if your main goal, main purpose was to have people do something less, well, then by making it taboo, you're achieving the exact opposite.
Yeah, because you are drawing all the attention on that
subject. When actually the best way to get something out of your system is do it a few times until you get bored of it.
Yeah, right.
So if it's sodomy is your thing, then that you should do that until you simply had enough.
So you're believing, let's say, in a higher power?
No, still no.
Still no.
I believe I'm subject to change during my lifetime, and now I believe I'm young. I still catalog myself as being young at this age. Yep. So the main trunk of my faith is the same one that I started out with in my teenage years. Okay. So it's still no deity It's still no creationism.
Okay.
Agnosticism is still there in the sense that even if there was and I was wrong, like the Pascal, what is that called? It's Pascal's judgment or Pascal's something.
I don't know, but I know what you're referring to.
Even if I'm wrong in this, I still have nothing to lose. Plus, I don't believe in the afterlife or the judgment. So this is something that I can't quite put my finger on it. What is the point of making this text widespread and making people fear it, like it is so done in all of Christianity? Having people behave well on this planet, on Earth, while present and living in fear of what may come afterwards. Like, you should not be an asshole on Earth just simply because it's wrong to be one and you wouldn't want other people to be that towards you, not because you fear something that may come.
But you know that in the early days, let's say, religion and faith was something that helped people endure and get over the most of their suffering. You know, they have faith that someone will come for them, and in the afterlife will be a lot easier. And this is how, let's say, religion was created, in order to push people through their limits and get over whatever life throws at them. But nowadays, I agree that.
What if you go a little back? So I think you were referring to the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, somewhere between the year 300 and the 1st century.
Yep.
But what if you go farther back than that? What if you go to ancient Greece?
Or ancient Egypt.
Ancient Egypt. I was thinking about, let's say there's a big difference between Greece and Egypt in terms of what deities they've created. So Greece mythology revolves around nature.
Yep.
Every element in nature has a god. And being in sync with that element of nature and with that god meant being in peace.
Yep.
So even if there was a god for the afterlife and there was a main deity, and people were doing sacrifices towards these gods, it didn't mean that they were fearing a judgment in the afterlife. They were fearing judgment in that moment.
Yep.
So if there was a storm, it meant that Poseidon had not been well tended for. If there was a fire, the same thing. So that was more evolved in my system of faith, because it meant giving actions a certain degree, a certain value in the present, not in the future. And this is key to being a civil person.
Yep.
Because if you fear punishment, then you're actually not behaving because that's the way you feel.
Yeah, it's not genuine.
It's not genuine.
Right. And I'm very keen on Egyptians and their religion.
It's because of the cats, isn't it?
And no, I've been to Egypt when I was a kid, and I was fascinated by their culture, everything, like, I don't know, from the temples, the pyramids, and their culture. And there are a lot of things that Christianity borrowed from them. I mean, when we say, we go to the church and say Amin or Amen, it's basically from Ra, which is the god of...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is from that. The so-called birth of Jesus, 25th of December, is actually the point when day was becoming more and more long. So it was related to the sun as well. Anything like this.
Is that valid today? Because I believe
I don't know if it's valid today, but this is how they
by that calendar then.
Yeah, and if you trace it back, it's that, and it's I don't know. There are so many coincidences. Let's take, for example, the Bible. The Bible is a book. Who wrote it? I mean, there are a lot of stories in the Bible, and I don't think that God wrote the Bible and threw it out on the earth, right? So it was written by someone. So how do we know that?
More authors than just one.
Yeah, there are human. That's the thing. There are human authors.
Of course.
There is 1, 2, 100. It doesn't matter. There are humans who wrote it. And how do you know this is true? And how can you believe that was true? And that actually happened.
Well, that is valid for all religious texts.
That's called faith. I mean, everyone is free to believe in everything. But I really think that there are a lot of coincidences, and this quite excites me. They don't make me an atheist or weaken my belief in a higher power, but I think it's genuinely interesting.
Well, when you say higher power, and you do you catalog yourself as an Orthodox Christian?
I am. I was.
You are by birth.
Yeah.
But are you?
But from my beliefs, no.
Okay, so the higher power you are referring to is not the Christian God.
It is a God, but it's not the Christian God. Yeah, right.
So which is it?
I don't know.
It's your own definition?
Yeah, it's an entity.
Mm-hmm.
Everything there is really someone not staying upstairs and looking at every minor detail that we are doing, but I believe in the Big Bang, really, which is a bit opposite with this higher power concept.
Well, I believe many priests have tried to reconcile the Big Bang and Genesis. Like, it could be the same thing.
It could. Yes, but I really believe that there is a God. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Did he create Earth and the universe? Did he trigger the Big Bang?
I really don't. There are some scientific proofs that the Big Bang was actually a scientific thing, not a God that, I don't know, lighted up the Earth. But I really don't know. I sometimes ask myself this, but the fact that this does not weaken my belief in that higher power makes me think that I believe more that someone created it than that
you're more of a creationist rather than...
Yeah. But I'm open-minded to any logical argument that is said to me. Mm. And I'm not judging anyone.
Well, I'm not here to impose my faith upon you, of course. You should never do that.
Yeah.
But I myself, I don't ask too much because I know this cannot be known. So again, agnosticism.
I know.
It's kind of pointless to... You can debate the subject, but you'll never reach a solid standpoint. So that's why I've given up on the topic.
Okay. Yeah. And do you see a connection between religion and medicine? Or
you could say it matters to a point, but when you actually start practicing medicine, mm-hmm. I mean, having patients and treating them, observing outcomes and doing follow-ups. Yeah. Religion doesn't play any role in this. You're just following what you've learned. You're sometimes following protocol, if there is one. Other times following your gut instinct, asking for opinions of your colleagues, your superiors, whatever, and then reaching an endpoint with the patient. So I don't believe religion plays any role in this, like, at all. Whenever you're, in your private space, in your mind temple, as you may have it, and then thinking about what happened to that patient, suppose you had a bad outcome for him. And then you can start to ask that higher power, whichever it may be for you, why that happened, what could I have done, is it my fault, should I blame myself?
Yeah, I understand, but you see for example, a patient that let's say has a better outcome than he should have. Do you think is that because he's the exception?
No, this may be egotistical of me, but whenever a patient has a better outcome than he should have, I think it's just statistics. So
it's just pure luck, or maybe he's a bit stronger than the others?
I could exemplify this with one patient. We'll not give names. Of course not, because I don't quite remember the name. Joking, I do. Young girl, a severe trauma to her eye. That is my specialty. Nobody gave her any chances, because whenever you have this very bad concussion to your eye, blunt trauma is the most destructive thing you can have. Mm-hmm. So in terms of visual potential to the eye, whenever blunt trauma is involved, this often affects the retina and the nerve, the choroid, so things you know about.
Yeah.
But visual potential is very limited in these cases. Many things involved. So we, off the bat, we tell these patients that we're going to do the best we can, but we cannot by any means guarantee visual outcome, useful visual outcome. So this patient with a ruptured globe, a gaping wound, there was barely any sclera to suture. I did the surgery as best I could. She ended up seeing 0.4, which means like, let's say 35%, 30% of a normal visual outcome, which is extraordinarily good for what she had. I don't ask why that happened. What I do ask is, why was I so convinced that she would not recover at all? When in fact, from that point on, I tell patients the outcome can be very variable, and I cannot say. This actually pushed me over the edge, and I told some patients that had absolutely no possible visual outcome that the outcome was variable. And sure, you could end up from no light perception, so that means no vision at all, to seeing fairly well. These things are, again, agnostic. You cannot tell in cases of trauma. So, what happened in these cases is that you should... the role God plays is not something you can foresee, because God actually doesn't play a real role. It's just that we do not understand what actually does play a role. So we're not, at the moment, equipped enough to foresee visual outcome in these cases. So what is at hand? It's God.
But do you believe you can, let's say, have a better outcome after a surgery or after a treatment or after a disease by simply having a strong core belief that you will get better? I mean, everything like a strong mindset about your recovery. Do you believe
You're talking
in
about the patient now.
Yeah.
He's an optimist.
Yeah, he's an optimist. Not even an optimist. He'll say, okay, I'll do whatever is in my power in terms of recovery, in terms of medicine, and I will get better.
Okay, so technically speaking, what is in his power? To properly administer treatment to himself, to not make things worse, and to show up for follow-ups. Okay, so if he does this, then his part of the deal is done. Okay, whatever he believes, however he feels, whatever the placebo effect may be, in severe cases, I believe this plays no role at all. And that is my final view. I mean, I know there are so many studies done on placebo effect, but this is psychological. And if you are suffering for a psychiatric or psychological condition, then yes, sure, placebo will have an effect on you. But if you're talking about solid numbers, variables, measurement values, I strongly believe that placebo has no effect in these cases.
But I'm not referring strictly to placebo, just a strong will of doing things. Just put something in your head and simply doing. I don't know what... there is a guy, I don't know if you know him, Wim Hof. Have you ever heard of him?
Okay.
Wim Hof.
No.
He's a guy that climbed Everest in his shorts. And he's a guy that was injected with some bacteria, and he managed to neutralize it through his, subconscious or something like this, but he was in a hospital. He was in a hospital, he was some E. coli, I think they were.
E. coli?
Yeah. And he said that he could actively trigger his immune system to neutralize that bacteria without any other...
So he was claiming that he himself, by sheer will...
Yeah, like, entering some sort of meditation, right? And he said that he managed to achieve that. Let's say he can stay in ice water for 2 hours, and he can. It was proved. And he said that he's doing that only by controlling his breath, which allows him to enter some deeper state of mind that allows him to do everything like this. And the most fascinating thing is that he has a twin brother, and he
can't do it.
No, yeah. And he said that anyone can do it because he trained a bunch of guys, 10 other men, and climbed with them on minus 20 on their shorts and in I don't know, some slippers or some boots for the snowy conditions. And how do you explain that? I mean, there are people who can get a cold by just going outside with I don't know, all the wardrobe on them. I mean,
what I think applies in these cases is claim that by conscious power you can influence your vegetative state, your vegetative system, your sympathetic system in these cases, and I don't know if that is possible. Although papers maybe have these things been published?
With this guy, yes. The thing with that bacteria, yes, there is also if you search him on YouTube, you'll see him on the hospital bed. And I know I didn't have time to search it, but I understand that it is published. This thing with the E. coli thing.
Right. So why isn't this thing let's say something that has been advocated and then taught on a massive scale?
I don't know.
Because avoiding frostburn and dying from from frost is something many people could find useful, I imagine.
Of course. I mean, I wouldn't mind going in the winter with just a t-shirt. I really don't.
Save you a lot of money. Then again, we've believed many things for many years which turned out to be false. Let's say vaccines. I don't want to spark a different topic here, but
that's a soft spot.
Yeah, like made up studies or made up cases.
Yep. I'm not 100% believing that this guy is genuine, but I consider like it is possible. Maybe it is possible. Mm-hmm. Maybe it can be done. I mean, I cannot stay 2 minutes in an ice shower. Mm-hmm. I've never tried. Maybe I can, and maybe some practice I can reach up to, half an hour. I don't know.
Like take the example of the SEALs, the Navy SEALs. What they do, you maybe not find it possible, but the way they advertise it is that when you feel that you are at your body's limits, you're actually at 40% of what your body can do. The 40% rule.
Yeah, I know. When they are in the hell week of that. Yeah, exactly. I know. You know that guy, David Goggins?
Nope.
He's a former SEAL and Marine officer, and he was relating his experience with the Hell Week in the Navy SEAL training, and I've heard of 40%.
Right, so yes, your body can be pushed to certain limits. Maybe not on the first go, but if you train it well enough, you may be able to achieve some things. And maybe if you are a monk or priest of some sort, you will maybe believe that you've been able to do so and other people not, simply because of your faith.
But maybe not even believing in a God for that, maybe just believing in yourself. You say, I can do that. Mm-hmm. I can survive this, illness.
Maybe you can, and maybe everybody can.
So that's why I'm asking you that. I think I really want to pursue a medical career, and I'm a number person. I mean, I believe in numbers, I believe in statistics, and I'm going to work with it. But what excites me are these kind of people, and see, okay, how did you manage to beat the odds, let's say? What did you do? You are, genetically stronger, you are, you have faith in something, you have a strong mindset, you believe you're a Superman, or what?
There are two things involved here. So one of them is the fact that as a surgeon and as a doctor, period, we tend to do one thing that is very beneficial to our daily practice. And that thing is under-promising and over-delivering. That is something I wake up to every day.
Yeah.
So that is something I keep in mind whenever I talk to a patient and he asks me about possible outcomes and potential complications of a certain medical act. I always over-exaggerate, but by a margin, not
of course
dramatically. So yeah, I'm going to have eye surgery, you may die. I'm not going to say that, even though it may be possible technically through a very slim corridor of misfortunes at every step. But I'm always going to slightly over-exaggerate the potential complications and always going to say that the outcome may be slightly worse than I actually honestly expect it to be.
Yeah.
Simply because that offers you a lot of comfort in the social dialogue that comes after the surgery. So you never know what he understands when you tell him, yes, surgery is going to go like this and the recovery is going to be like that. You've just spoken some words and he has translated them and understood them by his own education and whatever he has felt up to that point. So when he translates that, you don't know what he actually understood. You just know what you said and what he heard.
Yeah.
That's why it's always safer to under-promise the expectations, and then whatever he sees that has been done to him the next day, this is better than expected, and that's always a nice feeling to have for the patient.
Yeah, of course. But deep inside, you know exactly that.
Yeah, this has gone exactly according to what I expected, and this actually occurs much more often than not.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but if you promise a better outcome and you cannot reach it,
that is the recipe for failure.
Yeah,
you should never do it.
Yeah, you don't.
Because in the end, these are just words you've spoken and have no actual bearing on the patient.
Yeah.
What actually has a bearing on the patient is what you actually do.
Of course. Yeah.
So that is what matters, and he doesn't know that. There's such a big disconnect between what the patient thinks is being done to him and then what is actually being done to him, what he thinks is important and what actually is important. Then you cannot breach that gap without a lot of education, which you can't afford to do with every patient. And
yeah, of course. You really can. That's why the mass medical education should be made.
Plus, even if you do that, whenever you get into specifics, like specialty stuff,
you breach that barrier.
Well, it's pointless. Honestly, it is pointless.
And there are people and patients that don't want to listen and don't want to believe, and they have that. I don't know.
This is something I blame Orthodox faith for, because they're coming round again to this topic. There is a huge chunk of patients I deal with that simply don't want to understand what is being done to them.
And why do you think is that?
I believe it's the Orthodox faith.
Did you ask them? Why don't you want to know? No. But why do you want to know what is happening to you and what am I going to do in order to make you better?
No, I didn't ask that. So I believe in some cases when the case was so bad that the risk of complications was so high that I really wanted them to understand that. And I was trying to explain and they wouldn't hear it. I mean, they were just going, okay, you do whatever you can, whatever. They didn't want to hear my exact points. So at this point, this can go wrong and this may happen and so on and so forth. So I asked them, why isn't it that you want to listen to the whole explanation? And usually the response is, well, because this is the relative speaking about the patient. Well, because she's old, she can't understand. So that is mainly not being able to understand.
There's a misconception with being old and not understanding. If you are old, it doesn't. It's a matter of choice. You can be 30 years and
not understand and be 80 and
don't want to understand it, and then be 80 and as open-minded as you can be.
Yeah, this is why I think this is a creationist approach to the act of surgery. You are thinking of the surgery as a black box. So you are here, the patient standing in front of the big black box where you enter, you don't know what's going on, and then you come out. There's like a whole mystery that has been undertaken on your behalf, and then because you don't understand anything, it's a mystery. So it's a whole black box. That is a metaphor. Whereas if you travel to other medical systems where people are, I wouldn't say necessarily not orthodox, but just a bit more educated. This is valid anywhere westwards of Austria or Hungary. If you go further up north, that is much more valid. If you go to France, Spain, the UK, Germany, all of Scandinavia, whenever you want to explain something to a patient, he will listen to you and not talk during your explanation. This doesn't happen here. Whenever you start to explain something to a Romanian patient, he always cuts you off in the mid-sentence to tell you something useless that you didn't even need to know.
And why do you think that is that happening? It's because of lack of medical education?
Any sort of education, just simple education as is.
But maybe it's, fear?
Everybody fears. Normally, humanly, everybody fears something, but the more you know about something, the less you fear it. So this is where creationism steps in. The Western patients, they want to bypass their fear through knowledge. They want to learn as much as possible about what is being done so as to reduce the fear level. Whereas the creationist Romanians and
Yeah.
Eastern Europeans, they want to reduce their fear level by faith. So, okay,
Yeah.
the surgeon is the god, because this is something I've heard a lot during my training years.
It is a conception.
It is a conception, and he is the god, and you need to have faith in him, and thus your fear is abolished because you have no control. Well, you actually do. So it's diminishing your fear levels through lack of involvement. You are simply meat that is being has undertaken surgery, and everything is out of your control. Although that's not true.
Yeah, and even if you want to know, as you said with the Western European, that okay, they want to know more, but it's kind of false fear management, because it just gives them a feeling that they are more in control of what is done to them, which is completely opposite, because you are the same. The surgeon does the same maneuvers even here or anywhere in the planet, but they actually, I know, they are they think they are more in control by knowing things. I mean, I am of the opinion that is the better approach, to know. Yeah, I mean, it's even your right to know exactly what is happening to you. But I think it's just another way of bypassing fear. You can use faith. Okay, I really don't care. I just put my faith in him because he will do as any other doctor would do. Or he tell me more. Okay, now that I know more, what? The same thing will happen to me.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have control either way.
Yeah. But I prefer the more detailed approach about everything that is done. On the other hand, I see people not telling them what is going to happen. I mean, doctors.
Yeah,
not telling
these are
patients.
mostly doctors that are over 50 at least, that have dealt with the latter kind of patients that I was describing, the creationist type, who simply don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
And now in the later years, ever since the revolution, every generation, what is that, Generation X or Generation Y, before the millennials?
Before I think it's the Y.
Okay. Those people, like you and me,
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know if you label yourself as a millennial, but...
I am over 1984, so...
Okay, I don't label myself as a millennial because
I label myself as a millennial because of that time period, not because of the...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you and I, we both want to know more about, whenever we have surgery, I don't know if you've had any, I've had quite a few, we want to know more about what is being done.
Yeah.
And that... I wouldn't say it helps me deal with the stress and fear of the surgery itself, but it's just curiosity.
Okay.
So it's my body. I want to know what has been done to it.
Yeah.
For example, I've had this ACL surgery with anterior cruciate ligament surgery replacement with an autograft. Some tendon has been taken from the same leg and has been implanted instead of my ACL. So I know I can't feel my tendon anymore, and I'm not going to phone my doctor, hey, where's my tendon? Because I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, I know.
And I know surgery is not perfect, and if I have any sort of complaint, I can quickly identify why that is.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful to know more of what is being done to you and not treat it like it's some higher power that you don't have control over. You indeed don't have control over, but the act of knowledge simply gives you a direct relationship with that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's something that has to do with education or not, but you can't just ignore everything and simply selectively cherry pick whatever aspects of life you're comfortable with.